The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
TV party tonight! What? TV party tonight!
Oh, we got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews.
Don't want to talk about anything else.
We don't want to know.
We're dedicated, yes.
To our favorite shows.
Oh, my circuit!
Everybody loves Hypnotoad.
Scary dog!
Pearson and Blurnsville.
Futurama!
I looked upon the scene before me, upon the mere house and the simple landscape features of the domain, upon the bleak walls, upon the vacant eye-like shadows, upon a few rank sedges, and upon a few white trunks of decayed trees, with an utter depression of soul, which I can compare to no earthly sensation more properly than to the after-dream of the reveler upon opium, the bitter lapse into everyday life, the hideous dropping off the veil. There was an iciness, a sinking, a sickening of the heart, an unredeemed dreariness of thought which no goading of the imagination could torture into the aught of the sublime. What was it, I paused to think? What was it that so unnerved me in the contemplation of the House of Usher? Bucket List always wanted to start a show like that. Hello and welcome to TV Party Tonight. I am your host, Alexis Hejna, and if you couldn't tell from that slightly pretentious but still illuminating introduction, it's a spooky season, and we are here to talk the fall of the House of Usher, the latest miniseries on Netflix from one of them, I believe we've all agreed, although I could be wrong, one of the best current working horror directors, Mr. Mike Flanagan. Joining me tonight, they're always here with me whenever we're going to talk something horror. First of all, Mr. Jason Teasley. Hello, coming to us from some random hotel. I honestly don't know where in the country you are right now.
Currently in the home of our Radulich and Broadcasting comic guru, Jesse Starcher, coming to you live from Marietta, Ohio, as I am working this week and out of town as usual. So, yes, as fate would have it, I'm in a hotel room ready to talk House of Usher.
I hope you're getting hazard pay for being in Marietta, Ohio.
I am. I get double pay when I have to come to Marietta. I did go on a safari today, so that was
contract.
Also joining me, Mr. Robert Winfree, once again donning his Miskatonic shirt.
I don't have an Edgar Allan Poe t-shirt I discovered when I was deciding what I was going to wear for this one. But I figure in honor of... I know, I'm looking for one. I figure in honor of perhaps one of the more interesting characters we got in this entire show, Arthur Gordon Pym, I would don my Esoteric Order of Explorers t-shirt, which has plenty of... Hang on, the bottom one is where it has it, expeditions from the South Pacific to the Antarctic. And if you're familiar with both some of Poe's theoretical geography and the works of Lovecraft, which this clearly comes from, stay away from Antarctica. There's nothing good there.
I actually
thing you should know already.
I actually found a really cool Edgar Allan Poe shirt. It's like it's a Raven shirt, Nevermore shirt, but I'm not getting it yet because I think I want to put it on my list for Christmas shopping. So, and of course, you just heard him joining us. He has been appearing quite frequently here on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network. You may have heard him recently discussing The Last Voyage of the Demeter and that new Exorcist movie, which is apparently already going on streaming. That did not last long, folks.
For good reason.
Yeah, very good reason. Mr. Dorian Price, and I'm sorry that you got the memo that this was a costume party, because... I'm wearing a Pikachu shirt.
I told you when we started this, I was going to do this. I warned you ahead of time. You just thought I'd forget. Or hoped I'd forget. One of the two.
Didn't you also say you were going to have a stuffed raven on your shoulder or something?
I do. It's actually right over there. I'll grab it at some point during the review. It was just not wanting to gel with the background. Because again, as you guys can see, it's green screen. If that was
Yeah,
already
no, your hair is like doing this weird thing where it keeps cutting out on the side.
slowly getting eaten
Yeah.
away. It's part of the ambiance.
All right. So if you are a longtime fan, you know that Robert and Jason and I always do fun horror-related reviews this time of the year. Jason, you're the one who dubbed us our nickname, I believe it was.
Yes, the unholy trinity.
Three of us are the official horror go-to nut jobs for the Rattledge and Broadcasting Network. So we have reviewed Mr. Mike Flanagan's work previously. This is his, I want to say, fifth miniseries that he has done for
Let's see.
Netflix. He did
Haunting of Hill House,
House, Haunted of Bly Manor, Midnight Mass, Midnight Club, and yes, Fall of the House of Usher. Other than that, he is also well known for directing some really great horror movies, including Oculus, Gerald's Game, and Dr. Sleep. I know that we reviewed Dr. Sleep on the. I was supposed to join you guys for Dr. Sleep. I got snowed in and couldn't make it. So
yeah,
for that-
we have reviewed that one. Again, that wound up being just Mark and I, if memory serves.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I was supposed to join you, but I got trapped in freaking Grand Rapids, Michigan.
And there are technically worse places to be snowed in, but that's up there.
Marietta, Ohio being one of them.
I think I don't remember if Mark and I reviewed Gerald's Game. I know I watched it. Yeah, Flanagan as a minor like introduction to all of this. I don't know that I've experienced a more predictably up and down guy because like Hill House is great, Bly Manor is not, Midnight Mass is great, Midnight Club is not, and that brings us to this one.
Yeah, when
Yeah.
we reviewed Midnight Club, we kind of dovetailed into our anticipation to seeing this.
Yeah.
See what he would do
Yeah.
with Poe's work.
Yeah, I think okay, we did review. Actually, guys, you're gonna love this. Our review of Midnight Club came up on my memories today. We reviewed it 1 year ago today.
Oh wow.
Serendipity.
That's interesting.
Very true. And I think our general consensus was we liked the stories that the kids were telling, and we liked how those were directed and well and told, and we liked the actors in it. We just didn't like the connecting threads of the kids in the hospital.
There was that. There was the connecting threads were an issue. Some of the acting has not aged all that well. The more I've thought about it, like none of it. I don't think any of it's objectively bad, but
I do remember you complaining that you didn't like that the '90s vernacular was not more well used.
And look, if you're gonna make a point to set your movie or your show in a specific time period, I do think it is somewhat incumbent upon you to at least make a good faith effort at using the appropriate terminology and slang. You don't have to bury us in it, but again, do something with it. If you want to set something in the 90s, I mean, we were all there. We talked a certain way. There were, again, look, I'm not saying it's great. I'm saying that's...
Dorian, you don't get to lie about how young you are, okay? I know you lived through the 90s.
I lived through the 90s, but again, I don't remember a lot of it, so...
Hey, now.
Single digits.
Do you remember? It was like, do you remember a lot of the early 2000s either?
Yeah.
I'm trying to gauge how much of your brain cells you've blown out.
No, it's not even blowing out brain cells. It's being raised very strict Southern Baptist and kind of being cloistered. So that's why I was doing this. It wasn't that I wasn't there. It was like, sorry, continue.
All right. So yes, I do remember us talking about how excited we were about the fall of the House of Usher. So this premiered on October 12th on Netflix, brought to us by Intrepid Pictures. The episodes are directed by both Mike Flanagan and I am going to massacre the pronunciation of this man's last name, Michael Fimognari, I think. The idea of this miniseries. Yeah, the idea of the miniseries is that it takes inspiration from various different Edgar Allan Poe short stories, books, and poetry. The crux of it being that we are watching Roderick Usher, the CEO of Fortunato Pharmaceuticals, Richard Sackler, sorry, had something in my throat there, who has sadly watched all 6 of his heirs pass away within 1 week. As we go back in time and we watch what happened, we see Roderick and his sister Madeline as they climb the ladder of Fortunato Pharmaceuticals and literally build the wall of Fortunato Pharmaceuticals, and we see what happened to all 6 of their children. Every character here is named after a character from a various story, and each of the deaths that take place are not quite full adaptations, but inspired by various Edgar Allan Poe stories, hence why each episode is named after that. We have The Mask of the Red Death, The Murders in the Rue Morgue, The Black Cat, The Telltale Heart, The Gold Bug, and The Pit and the Pendulum. So one of the first things I want to talk about is that obviously one of the things we were excited about was to see how Mike Flanagan was going to adapt Edgar Allan Poe. We're all big horror nuts. I just want to know, what is your favorite Edgar Allan Poe story, poem, short, anything? Mr. Price, you are our honored guest tonight. Why don't we start with you?
Damn, it's has to be Mask of the Red Death, hands down. Raven being a very, very close, second to that, but it has to be Mask of the Red Death.
All right, Jason, what about you?
I would have to go Telltale Heart. I guess I'm kind of more lean toward that and just the madness that it brings upon. Mask of the Red Death is in my top 3, but it's third. So I would have to go Telltale Heart, Raven, and Red Death.
All right, Robert?
I haven't really ordered my appreciation of Poe in a long time, so in the end,
he's thinking, Jason, really quickly, it's hilarious. Yours is literally the reverse of mine.
Hey.
Like Telltale Heart's like number 3, so you just sorry, Robert.
No, you're good. You're good. Just in the interest of diversity of answers, then, because I think both of you are entirely. It's not wrong to pick either of those, but again, just for the sake of saying something different, I'll go with The Pit and the Pendulum. Again, more to just give a different answer than you guys did, because I tend to think very highly of Mask. I also think, for a long time, I would argue legitimately that Mask of the Red Death was the best cinematic adaptation from a Poe story. If you haven't seen the old, Roger Corman directs it, and I forget if Vincent Price is in it, but
it is Vincent. Yeah.
Yeah, he's Prospero. Yeah. I don't know that I would still hold to that position, but I know for a long time I considered that the best Poe movie that had been made. And Corman actually has a pretty decent run of Poe movies, but that, I think, is, again, it's the easiest story to kind of adapt into a nice little, not a short film, but a shorter movie. And it gave us it was really good. That might have shifted since then, but for a long time that was the top of the list there. And yeah, there's something about the kind of building dread in a lot of Poe's stories stems from normalcy. And I think part of the reason I gravitated more towards Pit and the Pendulum is it is so deliberately not normal that the growing sense of inevitable demise in utter darkness, depending on where you are in your life, it'll hit you differently. And that one, last time I read it, I was pretty darn depressed. So the walls pushing me ever closer to the bottomless pit in the middle of the room did track.
Yeah, mine has always been The Cask of Amontillado. Remember reading that in high school, and it just always stuck with me, the feeling of the terror that Fortunato is going through as the narrator literally seals him into his tomb. It's just so scary to think about. I absolutely loved it.
There's if you haven't read Stephen King's take on that, there's one of his short stories. I want to say it's in Needful Things. about a guy who exacts his revenge on a mob boss by digging a hole for his car to drive into and then burying him alive in it.
I think that is Needful Things. I think you nailed that.
I can't remember the title of the short story, but I can usually remember which collection they were in when I read them.
Right. Same. It's like it was in this book. Don't remember the hell it was called. Go check it out.
So we're not going to talk about episode by episode, but I do want to go over a bit with the cast first because, like a lot of directors, Flanagan does have his collection of reoccurring actors that he likes to bring in.
Man, I don't mind you having a muse as an actor. Well, like if you have someone you really like collaborating with. It's getting to the point with Flanagan where he's basically got Monty Python's Flying Circus. Like, you know exactly who everybody is, and it's...
Oh, look,
Yes.
there's Carla Gugino. Check it out on the bingo card.
Carla Gugino, Henry Thomas, Kate Siegel. We have Raoul Coley. Let's see, Samantha Soylent, Tania Miller, Katie Parker. Let's see here.
A lot of
Kylie Curran.
A lot of familiar faces if you've seen anything else he's done.
Yeah. Although everyone plays their parts incredibly well. So there's a case for using the same actors where it turns into Tim Burton and you're casting your girlfriend and she can't sing versus, well, you know what, these actors all played the role perfectly, so what else would we expect?
Isn't one of those actresses married to Flanagan?
Yep. Kate Siegel.
Yeah.
Camille, also Theo from Haunting of Hill House. So I can't remember what role she played in the others.
I know she's there, but
yeah, isn't she the other female lead in Midnight Mass?
Yes, she is. All right, so like I said, I don't want to talk about episode by episode because it's just going to go on too long. So I think what we're going to start with, first of all, is we all named... Whoa, Dorian, what the hell there?
I don't have no idea. We were experiencing technical difficulty. I think I fixed it. I am so sorry about that.
I don't know. You just suddenly turned into a literal phantasm yourself, man.
Just keeping the ambiance going.
Yeah. You
all
sure you're alive? Okay. So since we all named our favorites being stories that were adapted into this, I actually want you to talk about how your favorite story, your favorite Poe story, was adapted into this and what you thought of it.
Sure.
Robert, since you gave me your answer last, I'd like for you to go first this time.
Okay. So I was curious how they were going to do Pit and the Pendulum. Because by this point, it's the second to last episode, isn't it? I think that's number 7, and then The Raven is 8.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a feel for, especially if you're familiar with Poe's work, you kind of start to get the gist of what they're doing, how they're doing it, the sort of direction that they're taking with adapting this material. This is the one that I was, after watching Mask of the Red Death and going, not to step on that one, but watching that one going, oh, so this is what we're doing here. Because you don't get a lot of direction for the kind of methodology they're going to be using in the first episode. The first episode is, again, it's setting, it's mood establishment, but you don't get a sense for the kind of tricks and the ethos they're going to be invoking here. So Mask very plainly lays it out. And at that point, you can kind of track, when you see the title of each one, okay, loose, it's the murders in the Rue Morgue, and, well, there's a facility that experiments on chimps, and we all know where this is going now, don't we? And I used that one because nobody named it, so I felt that was pretty safe. And we get to Pit and the Pendulum, and we start this one, and it's going to be Freddy. He's the only one left at this point. And unfortunately, what we get is, of all the deaths in this series, I feel like this one was the most contrived. to try and attach it to the story that they're invoking here. And that's a little unfortunate, but by the same token, if you're going to use Pit and the Pendulum, it's one of his most famous works. You kind of have to invoke it at some point. It's the kind of thing that, again, the original story is set up via the Spanish Inquisition, basically. This is how they're choosing to interrogate and execute this the narrator. The world that we're living in for the fall of the House of Usher is very adjacent to our own. So you don't exactly have a nefarious government or religious organization abducting people that are setting up elaborate torture devices. And what we get is, again, unfortunately, Freddy, thinking he's snorting some cocaine, snorting a very powerful paralytic, falling to the ground in the. This is actually where the same location that the party happens in the Mask of the Red Death. They're trying to demolish the building. He collapses there, and then as the building demolishes around him, part of the ceiling detaches, and it makes a functional enough blade that slowly gets arcs back and forth and gets lower and eventually slices into him, and then the whole building collapses on top of him, and that's where we get. So yeah, it just felt super contrived, and I get that there's a supernatural entity making all of this happen, but even under those circumstances, it didn't quite work for me in that respect. As far as the episode itself goes, there are some high points though. I appreciated I don't know how I feel about this one. Freddy's kind of a background character for the first half or so of the series. And when you start out with a large cast and the whole gimmick is you kill somebody off each episode, some people are going to take a background role until you get later on into the show. I think the unfortunate side effect of that is his heel turn, and he's never a good guy, but when he goes off the deep end, it almost comes a little bit out of left field. To the extent that he goes, like him not being happy and assuming his wife was cheating on him, and again, there's a narrative there that she wasn't, but she was certainly tempted to, and his overreaction to that, him not handling that well, that all tracks. And then, deciding that cocaine will be a nice habit. I've hit every other cliche I can for a disappointing, weak-willed second son of a billionaire, or first son of a billionaire. So, let's add a drug habit. Him, again, taking very petty but very cruel revenge on her initially, using this paralytic to keep her in a state of she can't physically move but is very conscious of everything that goes on around her, which is very close to living hell, and just kind of like posting photos of them together and like, I loved you and you cheated on me, and she's desperately trying to explain what actually happened, and he's not interested. He no longer trusts her, and he's a little crazy.
Cocaine will do that to you.
That all tracked. And then right before his death, he decides to yank all of her teeth out with a pair of pliers. Reference to another Poe story, and one of his more infamous ones when he was actually alive and publishing. But it just felt a little forced for the character and for the narrative, and it felt more like an excuse to make this character more detestable so we can go through these elaborate machinations to invoke. It felt very. It's one of those moments when I could feel the hand of the author, and I never care for that. So that, again, it bothered me a little bit, and I think the other.
Almost one of those, hey, we want to do Pit and the Pendulums, we got to do it somewhere.
Yeah, and very, again, just very contrived, very non-authentic. The others come about very naturally, believe it or not. Some of them are a little bit wild. Goldbug is one of the more like weird ways someone dies, but having suffered from pretty severe insomnia at different times in my life, that episode freaked me out just a little bit. Because I've done I'm so tired, but I can't sleep, and I blink and like 10 minutes have passed, and I did stuff, and I have no recollection of it. I've done that.
You've had micro naps like that?
Yeah, pretty much. I've never full on hallucinated something, thankfully. But anyone who suffered from insomnia to any serious, even like a moderate degree, that episode will that'll tickle some fun stuff back there in your brain.
Mm-hmm.
But again, Mask of the Red Death was very natural in its setup. Telltale Heart was very natural in its setup. And for Pit and the Pendulum to then be so unnatural, so contrived about all of this, it was a letdown, especially because some of the others worked so well. Like when the bar is set so consistently high throughout the rest of the series, when it does fall down, it's all the more noticeable.
Yeah, I think they kind of painted themselves into a corner with that.
A little bit.
Because, everything, like you said, everything else works so well. And then they're like, we got to shoehorn this in some way. And I think a lot of that episode was carried more by the daughter than Freddie.
Lenore
did good work there.
And I felt that she carried a lot of weight throughout the entire series to build up to that, to see that turn, to try to make Freddie seem more sinister than what he actually was.
And again, my only gripe there is if you want to make him more sinister, I'm fine with that, but you got to that should be consistent throughout the show. We only have 8 episodes. You can't spend the last 2 taking this guy who's been kind of, weak-willed and profoundly unimpressive, and then throw a pretty deeply sadistic turn in there at the last minute without properly setting it up. Again, it doesn't quite resonate the way it should. And
you're saying it probably would have been better if we had seen him being cruel to Morella more quickly after she was recovered from the burn site.
Either that, or even not necessarily to her, but just to other people. Like he's not a great father. He didn't have a great father, but you can tell when he interacts with his daughter that he does care about her. He's not cruel to her. So if you want to show again this kind of petty, vindictive side of him, you need something where he abuses someone, even if it's just verbally, some of his subordinates or something. Like
the only one he does that to is Perry.
Yeah, and we all
Perry's a freaking idiot.
But it's Perry. You spend 5 minutes with him and you understand where everyone else comes from.
I think my exact words with Perry was, "Oh dear God, could someone just feed this jackass to Leviathan already and let the Cenobites have their fun?"
Well, I think
and also the problem is that none of these.
Go ahead,
Dorian.
No, I was saying the problem is that none of these characters, and this kind of is a Flanagan thing, and I'll probably get to this later, but I just want to kind of touch on it now. Flanagan has a habit of bringing characters into horror that you get through the first 2 episodes, which by then you've probably met everyone. You go, I could literally care less if any of these people live or die. I'm literally looking at my clock, waiting to see how they die.
Yeah, there is some truth to that. All 6 of these heirs are horrible people, and you're right that you're right, Robert. Freddie gets the least amount of screen time and development to show just how horrible he is. I think we're just supposed to assume by that ugliest sin ponytail of his.
Look, I'm not saying he deserved to die for that hair alone, if nothing else, but
yeah, all of these.
I think they could have set this up a little bit
Yeah.
better. Is have the party happen and then have her get severely burned at a second event. That way, you have the full footage, him finding out about it and just trying to catch her up in it, and then once she has the horrific burn and stuff at Perry's party, have that be what triggered, have him abusing everybody because he feels like everybody's hiding it from him.
I agree. I honestly think that since the original, the Corman version also of Pit and the Pendulum had a whole you betrayed me and now I will kill you thing, and I have set up this pendulum. If they had leaned more into that, which again I know was not the intent of the show. The intent of the show was to adapt Edgar Allan Poe stuff, which is again why we're all here. But if they had leaned more into Corman's thing of it kind of being hoisted on his own petard in a way, and that pendulum then that he'd made for her or something to that effect, then I think that would have worked better instead of You're literally telling me that the way they demolished this building, there just happened to be three cheers for, living in the ghost realm and being able to make shit happen however you want.
Yeah, there's that. I think the only
I not gonna lie though, when it actually did form, when the blade fell in and started forming the pendulum, Andre and I both actually threw our hands up and cheered, like, "Yes, it's a pendulum!" Just like we knew, we were waiting for a lack of better terms, we were waiting for that shoe to drop. Just we
you
knew
are
what this
waiting for
episode
it
was
that whole
called.
episode. Yeah, you're waiting for it to actually happen that whole episode, and
Yeah,
And
you're waiting for the pit to open up or the pendulum to fall. We knew what it was based on, and I was just like, okay, where is it? Where is it? Something's gonna happen, and when it does, you can't help but cheer.
And I also
Especially
think-
because, yeah, I don't care if he had the least amount of development, he deserved it.
And I honestly think it would have been a little more interesting because, again, if you're a Poe fan, once you see what the title of the episode is, you're like, all right, cool. How are they doing this one? You know it pretty well. I think it would have been more interesting if they had just taken quotations from the actual story. Because, again, us all being Poe fans, I'm assuming, because we all have our favorites here, there's things that outside of the Raven we might not know are from a certain story. So then we're going, crap. I mean, I know they've mentioned Goldbug with this daughter, but we're with this guy. Is this gonna? How are they gonna do that? That might have been more interesting.
I'll go
Kinda had
ahead and
some
admit, I
misdirection.
was not familiar with Goldbug. That's one of the stories I have honestly never read, and I looked it up before we watched the episode.
that might be like his most obscure thing, or
I was
certainly
only
one
familiar with it because my senior year of high school, I did a big thing on Poe, and I did a lot of research on his works. I did a research paper on him, and I researched a lot of his works. That's why I had hit or miss from familiar with some of the more obscure references and everything.
All right. Well, Jason, why don't you go ahead and keep going? Let's hear you talk about the adaptation of your favorite story.
Telltale Heart. Telltale Heart was, I think that was the best one done because it became more natural because, they're doing this heart transplant that quote unquote can keep you living forever. And the fact it was a pharmaceutical company that, we all know in today's day and time, pharmaceutical companies pretty much run a lot of things, and they have their hand in a lot of things. And to see this being something with my medical background and everything, to see them trying to use the technology of quote unquote a heart that will beat forever. When I first seen that and seen the operations and everything building up to it, I got giddy. I'm not gonna lie, I got giddy, and I was like, I know where this is going. I want to see how they pull this off, and to see the madness that she goes through, and the denial, and the fact that she's like, yes, I have a prototype right here. I can keep her alive. This doesn't happen, and just to see when Roddy walks into the room to see what's going on, just the way it was just portrayed, the lighting, the aesthetics and everything. Dorian, I'm sure that you can, elaborate into this a little bit more. Just the aesthetics of that room, how the body was positioned, the lighting and everything made that a lot more sinister and creepy, especially when she walks over and just starts having a one-person dialogue with a corpse, like nothing's wrong. And she's like, yeah, I'm sorry, you should have been better. And just to see Roddy's face in absolute horror, because then that's when the reality sets in of shit's totally went sideways. Everything's off the rails. Everything's spiraling. And then to watch her commit suicide by basically slicing open her own chest. And you still have that faint heartbeat in the background as she's dying.
And you hear it as the credits roll.
Yes.
Oh, God, that was freaky.
And it's the little things like that throughout the entire episode, like her blacking out, her in the office, just hearing that device and just going crazy, and you're like, what's going on? How's this going to play out? Because you're thinking, well, okay, it's the device. The device is going to drive her mad. You don't really think about it's going to. She killed her constituent, her better half, the love of her life. She murdered them and then performed her own surgery using the device that was not ready for human trial. That everybody has told her it's not ready for human trial, but her bypassing that everything and letting the madness take over. That is what brought me to the absolute sheer giddiness of that episode and made me rank that episode probably, I'm going to say it probably my second favorite behind the Red Death episode, because I think that was like so well done. But this is like 1B for me, because one of the build, the aesthetics, the reveal, and like you said, that heartbeat at the credits was just like an eerie reminder of where the story came from.
Well, and let me jump in on that real quick. Even the kind of half fake out that they did with when Allie is leaving, she's like, you know what, all you ushers, you're I didn't want to believe it, but you're all monsters. And she walks out, and you see, you know, Vic throw, you know, the thing at the door, but the way she throws it, you wouldn't think that it would make contact. It's just going to shatter against the wall. She walked out,
hit
and then
the door.
Yeah, and then the episode she's calling, it's like, you know, please, just as my third message, please just talk to me, you know, blah, blah, blah. And her getting deeper into that. And then when you realize, and again, the actor's portrayal of the, oh, Dad, you know what? I remembered. I actually killed her in here. Then I cleaned it all up, and then I brought her in here, and see, it works. And it's like, you can just see that. It's like, ding, ding, ding. It's like the chords of sanity are just snapping in front of our eyes. And again, you talking about the lighting. When it changed, like it didn't go that deep, like 60s. Hey, audience, I know you're an idiot, so we're in insane territory now. You know, but just that kind of orangish, like it wasn't even a right color of orange.
Her madness color code was like the orange and red.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a
hers
like
played with
kind
that.
of like a desert sunset kind of aesthetic.
Yeah, a little
It
bit.
is kind of interesting. You wonder if Flanagan was kind of drawing a little bit more from Mask of the Red Death, because each one of the characters does have a color symbolizing with their death.
Sure, I
So
never
it's like, was
noticed
he
that.
pulling more from the story for the whole series?
Through all the different rooms till we get to the
Mhm.
last one. Also, shout out to Roderick in that scene when she's trying to explain what's going on, and he had finally just has to say, "Oh no, she's quite dead,"
Yeah.
and and use those words.
Yeah, Bruce Greenwood, I mean, just knocking it out of the park every episode.
Oh, yeah.
Good or bad,
You
is
know,
just...
Before we actually get to your adaptation, Dorian, I do want to give a quick shout out. The actors in this were incredible. Like I said, there's one thing where an actor or when a director reuses the same cast, but I cannot think of a single actor in the series who I thought was miscast. I absolutely loved it. I mean, hell, we have, what's his name? Sarian Subkota, who was previously in the Midnight Club, who comes in playing Prospero, a completely different character, and he nails it. And frankly, I just got to say it. I don't think anyone was as incredible as Mark Hamill.
Oh, God, yeah.
Oh, yes.
He
that was phenomenal.
blew me out of the water. It was just like, this is like, I mean, we all know him as the voice of the Joker, as the voice of one of the
Yes.
greatest villains of all time. And I know that for most of us, no matter which actor we prefer playing the Joker, Jack Nicholson, Joaquin Phoenix, Heath Ledger, but we always associate Mark Hamill's
How
voice.
dare you leave Jared Leto off of that list? Sorry, I couldn't say it with a
Because
straight face.
Yeah, and that's
because
my
we
response,
don't-
Robert.
we don't acknowledge that.
How
here.
dare
We
you
don't.
remember him?
Yeah,
Hey,
that's the
we
best.
don't
I
even-
had to. Hey, I watched that movie. I reviewed that movie. I suffer with that memory. I inflict it
we-
on everyone else whenever I can.
I
We don't
refuse
talk
to
about
acknowledge
Let's
that.
Go. No.
I refuse to acknowledge that movie. James Gunn wiped the floor with that movie and gave us a much better project.
When your version of the Joker is worse than Cesar Romero's,
Mm-hmm.
And Cesar Romero was doing what he was told. It was like,
Yeah.
oh,
Apart
can't
from
be
shaving his
terrifying, no shit.
mustache.
Whoop, hit my computer there. But okay, but no. So as I was saying, yeah, Mark Hamill. I know again that we identify him, and for many of us, his voice is what we think of when we think of the Joker. He plays such a different villain here with Arthur Pym, the fixer for the Usher family, and he's got this gravelly, deep voice, and he is so cold-blooded. He's pretty much a mafia killer at this point. He has no qualms about going in, killing someone, disposing of their corpse. He's got such a high-end entrance. He knows so many people, and he knows exactly how to twist and manipulate them, that he basically calls the chief of police and says, "You're gonna let me in to this crime scene before your cops go in, so I can get rid of any evidence that may link us back to our family." He covers everything so smoothly.
He's the definition of a cleaner.
Very much so. And you have no problem believing that.
For the shortest guy in this cast, he cast the biggest shadow. Like
Damn,
he has
good
so
line. I
much.
like
He has
that.
so much presence, and he's still deferential to especially Roderick. I think if there was one thing I wanted out of this series that I didn't get, I wanted their backstory together, because it's hinted at a few different times, but I really wanted to know how those two met and what
They hint at it.
Yeah, again, they hint at it.
Like, I wouldn't be the man I am today if it weren't for Roderick Usher.
I wanted to see that.
Move on.
I think that it was kind of basically explained in a tongue-in-cheek kind of way when she's talking to Pym and she's offering him everything, because during the flashback she makes the comment that nothing will ever be linked to you, no matter how many charges they bring up against you, that none of them will stick. And basically it was like she placed Pym she interjected him to be basically the Teflon to keep Roderick and Madeline clean, to basically make them Teflon where nothing would stick to them.
Although, can we briefly, Alexis, unless you're going to get to this later, can we talk about his the last offer he gets from our quote unquote antagonists? How he deals with that?
Yeah, the fact he says this kind of actually brought me back to a scene from Midnight Mass. We have a story that I cannot remember her name. The actress is in this as well. She plays Juno.
Oh,
and she tells her story about the girl who makes the deal with the devil. And the devil's played by Heather Langenkamp. And the devil says something to the effect of, "Oh, I don't need to barter for souls anymore." And that's very much what I got out of Verna, is that she is saying, I don't need your soul, especially since there is no qualms that Roderick, Madeline, and Arthur are all going to hell when they die. No question. And but when she goes to Pym, she goes, "What do you have to offer? Do you have any kind of collateral? Who do you have in your life? Who can you betray? Who can you throw under the bus?" And Pym has no one. No friends, no family, no loved ones, no connections.
It's like, I think I'll just play out my hand. It's close to the end. It was like really the most disturbing and most 2 inches away from serial killer, if not actual serial killer, of the whole thing. Goes, nah, I'm good. Thanks.
He's absolutely a serial killer, if nothing else.
Right. Yeah.
But no, he just looks at this personification of death basically, and goes, 70 years on this planet, I've never been leveraged. Don't think I want to change that right now.
Yeah.
I'll play out my hand. Thanks, though.
And again, that's another thing about Mark Hamill's performance. You were talking about him casting the biggest shadow and having a lot of the stage presence. Some of the creepiest moments are when Roderick and Madeline are talking and they'll get really close on them and you almost forget for a second that Mark's in the room. And then he talks and you're like, sweet Christ don't do that. Breathe heavily or something.
But yeah, I have no doubts that this is one of Mark Hamill's greatest performances. He really blew me out of the water with this.
Hollywood, keep hiring him. I like seeing him in live action without being behind a lightsaber.
Yeah, it's a genuinely wonderful. He doesn't get to do understated very often, does Hamill? So to be allowed to be this subtle in his performance, it was a real treat.
And actually, sorry, just very, very quickly, and then I'll swear to God, I'll shut up. If you enjoyed his performance in this, check out, and I think it's pretty much free to watch because I think it's in public domain. It's a movie called Midnight Run from the 90s. It is not fantastic. It's not winning any awards ever, but not only, again, if you're a fan of his performance in Batman as the Joker, check that out because he's really good in it. And you kind of see the beginnings of how he was, going to form that character in a few years, but you also see, like, honestly, Midnight Run, if the character didn't die at the end, spoilers, but again, it's a 90s slasher film, he can't live, because there wasn't Midnight Run 4. But it could honestly be an Arthur Pym prequel. So check it out. It's called Midnight Run from the 90s.
All right. So, well, let's go ahead and get back to what we were talking earlier. Mr. Price, it is your turn. And this is going to be interesting because I think, okay, so sorry, Dorian, but there's a group chat that Robert, Jason, and I are in. It's called the Unholy Trinity, where we talk about horror stuff. And the bit of this miniseries that kept coming up that we kept talking about over and over was Prospero's death in the Mask, or the Mask of Red Death, because holy crap.
I know.
Yeah. So take it away.
Okay. Mask of Red Death has always been one of my favorites simply because it was one of the first Vincent Price movies I ever saw. And again, got to uphold the family name and all that shit. And I liked it because again, I know we're talking about the TV show, but I need the backup of this movie just very quickly. I liked how they were kind of being a little overtly sexual and rapey in that movie. And even as a young child, I'm like, Vincent, you're gross, buddy. Go back to doing the shit at the end of Michael Jackson songs and doing Great Mouse Detective. You're breaking my heart here.
What, he's always a Scooby-Doo.
Right, exactly.
There's a flashback that I don't think any of us saw coming.
Don't go breaking my heart. But anyways, so, and I remember reading the story shortly afterwards. I think I was about 6 at the time. And when they were setting up in this show, coming back to the show, Prospero's party, I'm like, oh shit. And like all it took was that drop from the sprinklers. And they were talking, about earlier about all the chemicals there. I'm like, oh God, is that how they do it? Is that how they do it? And then like when you cut back to Roderick and
August.
Using Dupont as the last name of like the guy trying to investigate these basically, they are monsters. So I was like, fuck yeah, well done. But
hey, Carl Lumley giving a really good performance after we saw him in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Right, it's like
where he gave one of the best speeches of that whole series.
And who knew? Like again, we have the Joker working for the bad guys. We have Martian Manhunter's voice working for the good guys. That's a Justice League cartoon reference for those of you who didn't get it. Any hoodle. But when we saw what Prospero looked like in after he died in Roderick's Madness, I was like, oh, it is how they're going to do it. So the build up to me was perfect. It didn't take too long. It didn't take too little. I liked how, again, if you're going to recreate this debaucherous party that Poe had written, over 100 years ago, it's like, how are you going to do it? Okay, this is where you really lean into your Netflix, have your nudity, have everything. This is your moment, Mike. Kick ass, take names. And it was so perfectly done, in my opinion, especially when the water starts hitting them, because any less of a director would have had it immediately. It hits and everyone's like, ah, but this took a couple seconds of ow, oh, that doesn't work. And it was that, that really reached into the audience going, Oh, they're burning to death. That sucks.
I was going to say, now, I wasn't expecting acid. I thought what they were going to do was that those were fuel tanks on this roof. And that it was going to be, they were getting hit, and all of a sudden they're like, why does it smell like gasoline? Spark on the DJ's setup. Whoosh, everyone burns.
Again, with what they talked about earlier with the environmental stuff, I was like, there's something hit up there. There's got to be.
I knew there was. Yeah, you knew there was something. Honestly, my thought was more was not going to be what we got, which was basically very powerful acid. My thought originally was something horribly toxic. So like the water goes off, everyone's having a good time, and then 2 hours later, suddenly you start getting nauseous, and maybe there's lesions, and then your hair starts falling out, and that's kind of where my head went originally. But the acid was a much better idea, I think.
Yeah, and I made
this had been a 13.
I made this comment.
Go ahead.
I made this comment in our group chat, our Holy Group Trinity. This is probably one of the top death scenes. I put it up there with. I mean, I don't know if any of you three have seen the collection. Where
Who do you think you're talking to?
Well, I mean, some people have. I mean, some horror fans I know have never seen the collector or the collection. I put it up there with that death scene, that opening death scene with the lawnmower blades mauling down that party, and it's like because you get the realization of. There's no way out. You can't survive this, and you got the dread of there's nobody getting out of this alive, and the fact that you see everyone around you suffering the same fate that you're about to, and like Dorian pointed out, it isn't an immediate reaction. It is a kind of that delayed because nerve receptors do not. You have to have that time to transmit the pain and to have a reaction. It's not instantaneous. You have like, oh, that doesn't feel right. Oh shit. Oh God, I am literally becoming liquid myself.
Mm-hmm.
And when it pulls back and you see Pim going through and looking at everybody, and you just see the mass of flesh that has just melted away, and you just see the bodies in like these goops,
and the sound design in that moment too,
the sizzling with the screaming with the music still playing.
Well, and also the sound design when Pim's walking through, because
there's a glorious squish.
Yeah,
I don't know exactly.
You have no idea what you.
It's viscous enough,
you just stepped
in. You can feel.
It's like, who did you step in? What did you step in?
That was the left arm.
Don't go in there, Mark Hamill. You have no idea where it's been.
That was the heart.
You want gelatinous cubes? This is how you get gelatinous cubes.
Right.
Exactly.
Bravo for bringing it back to D&D. I salute you, good sir.
I was debating gelatinous cubes or gibbering mouthers, but gelatinous cubes seemed better.
Yeah, definitely.
The Usher family now selling our new favorite, gelatinous cubes. You may know one of the people in it.
May know one of the people in it. May know one of the people that is it.
That's where I was going next. I just needed to like this. But yeah, no,
beat you to
this death for me, one of the reasons it was so important is that it did kick off the series in a great way. It would have been so easy to wait for Mask of the Red Death till later, but starting it off with this way shows Flanagan's brilliance of this is the world we're in now, and I've just murdered, God knows how many extras. I mean, not actually murdered them, but
Well,
we don't know that.
You never know.
Like I said, you've murdered several dozen trust fund babies.
And high profile
senator's
people.
Daughter, a
starting
draft pick.
Yeah.
First draft pick, yeah. And again, I really liked that being the first almost flare gun of Verna. or
This-
antagonist. It's
Yeah,
like,
This comes
I'm
out
not-
it's
swinging.
basically the
subtle. I'm
warning
gonna-
of, and it's not getting any better from here, folks.
yeah, it's like
All right,
this.
pull out the bingo card, because I want to I want to check off a bingo card. This is like when you're watching like a wrestling pay-per-view, you have to have that first match has to be something that hooks your audience. That's this episode has to hook your audience. This is basically your pilot episode. This has got to set the tone for the entire rest of the series. And I think that's why they put Red Death first, because one, it's, we all four have talked highly of it. It's a well-known, it's basically one of the hits. You
You mean one of Edgar Allan Poe's hits?
Yes, you
Okay.
don't go to concerts to listen to new music. You go to listen to the hits. Basically, is what and fans of this, you want to come out of the gate, basically setting the bar high for everything to come. And I think the only thing that you can do that for is you could either with Red Death or Telltale Heart, because those two are probably, I want to say, because you can't do Raven, because that's the theme throughout the entire thing.
That's the culmination. Yeah.
Yeah. You can't do that. You can't do the most popular. So you have to get something that's going to hook your audience. And I think those two stories are the two casual reader and stuff are going to recognize those two stories. So, and I think you had to build the Telltale Heart. So
Yeah.
this is the only place that this could fit. Plus, it hooks everybody in, and it sets the tone for the entire series.
Well, it also gives us a bit of poetic justice. A lot of during this series, I was reminded of Last House on the Left, the original one, Wes Craven's, because none of these characters did I give a flying fuck about. I was literally waiting to see how they were going to kill them off.
I think we were cheering when most of them
Yeah.
died.
I mean, you said even you and Andre were like, it's the pendulum, It's like that. That's the characters we were actually waiting to see. Was it's like our Avengers Endgame moments. The pendulum shows up to Portals being by Hans Zimmer playing in the background. Oh, thank God they're here. But yeah, for this first one, it was. The first death or deaths in this case. It was perfect. It was well done. It wasn't so gruesome that it would push away lesser horror fans that aren't more used to that, but it was also not pulling its punches so much that it would make horror fans like us go, oh, come on, you pussies. Show me eviscerated guts, damn you.
Show me the squishy parts.
I will also say, I think Mask of the Red Death is my favorite of Carla Gugino's moments. She appears to each of the heirs
Oh my God.
either right before they die. In this one, she comes in as a guest and she gives this great speech to Prospero. The idea that it is not the moment of ecstasy that you wait for, it is the moment before the moment. And we see that as he waits for the water to drop before he realizes that everything is literally about to go straight to hell. And I love her speech. I love how she lies there in the lingerie, especially wearing the red cloak and that literal mask of death. It was so well done.
This is
Alexis, I completely agree with you. I get a huge kick out of the fact of you went to directly her monologue, and Jason's over here going, that lingerie man and that red cloak.
Yeah.
Like he just his head went back and it was like, well, as long as the scene worked.
Hey, Carla Gugino looks amazing. Okay, she is aged perfectly. She is gorgeous.
And like I said, I think that monologue was the second best monologue of this entire.
Oh, we all know what the best monologue was.
Yeah, and I was going to hand that over to Robert to discuss.
Robert, you were the one who brought this up in the chat. What do you do when life hands you lemons?
I should have memorized it before this, but
it's available on IMDb. You want me to send it to you?
No, it's all right.
You start a wide market campaign.
You do.
Forming the entire world.
You stockpile them.
Well, that's actually not till later.
No, first you convince everyone there's a shortage. Then you create the shortage. Then you start the social media blitz. You start telling people that, no, you don't need to give your loved one roses. You give them lemons. something isn't cool anymore, it's lemon. You cut in Billie Eilish, get her to hashtag it.
Hashtag lemon, yeah.
You talk with Apple, you slip them a little bit of money to change the name of their new operating system to iOS Lemon, throw an accent over it. Then you start selling, and after you've then you start selling people lemons because you've got the market cornered. And after a little bit, you sell off the entire shebang for billions of dollars, and then you make lemonade. And
you forgot the genetic code changing lemons to look
Yeah.
like
oh
kids.
yes, you suddenly change the genetic code, copyright it, which you can do. Like, believe it or not, this is a thing you can do. This is one of the reasons that I laugh at people who say that, various CBD products and marijuana being decriminalized will make a dent into pharmaceutical companies. Every one of them has their own unique strain that they've already copywritten and patented and everything. So no, it really won't. And then you seed some of those out in the world so that you can then sue all the farmers when they show up for infringing on your intellectual property. And yeah, it's a great monologue. It's brilliantly delivered, and the cherry on top is the cut to Lumley's face.
Just that, what the hell? That oh my God, yeah.
We've no,
Memo to me: next time a criminal calls me and asks me to come to his childhood home, you say no.
It was just this wonderful moment when a normal person gets a peek into the mind of the super ambitious, and especially the conniving. If you've never had a conversation with someone who is very ambitious and very personally driven, you've had this moment if you've ever talked with some of them, when they let you in on how they think, and it is so wildly different from how you think. It's something. And to that same end, I just want to briefly say, the chemistry between Greenwood and Lumley is really top notch. There's a real special kind of interaction and relationship between people who have been adversaries for decades.
Allies
friends.
turned
Yeah,
adversaries.
it's a respect
because
and
Roderick
hatred all at once.
literally threw him under the bus.
Yeah,
It's an admiration, respect, and hatred all tied
All
together.
wrapped up into one.
and that's such a hard dynamic to nail necessarily, and those two almost effortlessly just nailed it from start to finish.
Although I
Mhm.
do want to start using the term "drag me, honey badger" more often in real life.
It's a good one.
He's like, "Fuck you, drag me, honey badger." I was like, "Well done, Greenwood."
Yeah. So, okay. Next thing I want to ask you guys. We talked about some of the various deaths. We have over talked Prospero's death. So I don't want to ask you guys what your favorite death is, because I think in the long run we're all going to say Prospero's. So what I want to actually ask you guys is, what was your favorite scare in the whole series?
Oh, I would say for me is the ape. The
ape that gives that grin after it's literally torn Camille apart.
Yeah, that whole scene. I mean, because
When she
you get
holds
the
up the
jump scare.
phone.
Well, yeah, when you get the jump scare, when you realize that something just isn't right when Camille walks in, and you see the silhouette of the security guard, and then all of a sudden jumps up on the table, and then she's feels like fuck it, and then she pulls her phone up, and you just see that jump scare come. You see the chimpanzee, let's get it right, come at.
No, chimps are
and-
apes. You were fine.
Well, they
Just
make
don't
a
call him a
distinction.
monkey.
Badass over here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and then you just see that realization of through the phone, and it just I think that was my favorite scare, simply because Camille was just the acceptance of, and the jump scare. Yeah, she knew that she fucked up, and and I wish they would have expounded on her character a little bit more. I wish she would have went a little bit further into the series. I think because she was more of like her aunt than, and I think that you would have seen that dynamic, and you could have had a power struggle between her and the aunt for control.
Very
And
true. It's like I don't know who was more heartless, Madeline or
yeah,
Camille.
yeah, because
Tough
I
one.
mean, you could have seen that struggle of, because Camille had dirt on everybody, and it doesn't matter who. And the dialogue she gives when her assistants come in and say they're in love and they want it, and just the nonchalant monologue she gives is something to be admired as well. But I think that jump scare with the phone and the monkey about to rip her face off was mine.
All right. Dorian, what was your favorite scare?
Well, I'm gonna go a little off the rails here because, again, for people who've watched me on the show before, I'm a filmmaker. I write horror stories, and obviously some of my films are horror movies. I'm gonna go a little bit more emotional. It's not a jump scare. It was the moment I went, "Oh no, no, no! Please God, not this!"
Oh,
Was
I know
right
where
at
you're
the
going.
end, and it was something I was debating in my mind once. Verna was talking with both Roderick and Madeline in the flashback. Once it's over, all the ushers take a bow
The
together.
the bloodline
And I
dies.
went, wait, yeah, the bloodline dies. Thank you, Jason. And I was like, and when Lenore's there again, the actor's doing so well. Again, David, sorry, David. I keep saying Davidson. It's Greenwood is doing so well that you kind of get lost in it if you're not, trying to pick it apart. And she opens the door, and Verna's sitting there, and that to me was just, my heart dropped. It was the most terrifying thing. Like, not her. She is the
Not the
one person in
granddaughter.
this entire show that I don't want to fucking see die. Now, again, I also know it's Edgar Allan Poe, so she has to die because it's all about tragedy and madness and despair. But it
Well,
was like, that to me was the best scare of the entire show because it was so slow, and then her actual death was so quick and painless that you're still but at the same time it's heartbreaking.
well,
So
and the fact that you're going through the entire series, you see, you kind of put out the idea of the AI and her being the beta. So when the text messages are coming through, it gives you that false sense of hope. But Roderick builds her up as being the one good apple, the purest
the
of
best of
the
us.
bunch.
The best.
Yes,
He uses that phrase
yeah,
multiple times.
yes, and he's building her up, and so I can relate to that. So when she walks in and sees Vernon standing there, you're like, no, they're gonna throw a wrench here. That they can't kill her off. She's got to survive. She's going to take over the company, and then you hear the heartfelt monologue that her mother's going to start this foundation, and you're like, and like she is just so, the delivery is just so calming of what her death is going to mean in the long run. And you're like, there's no escaping this. So yeah, I
And yeah,
agree.
exactly. And
I
I was actually
fully
about to get
understand where you're coming from.
to that. I'm glad you actually said it better than I would have. So thank you. Uh, takes care of half of my notes on that one. But one of the other things I liked about that moment was how the actor approached it. There was initial terror, and then you know what? With everything else that's happened, this is might as well happen. You know what? Screw it. Let's burn the whole house down. Fuck it. And that to me, I think was done cinematically, lighting, acting, directing, the whole shebang well. Because if you have soul one in your body, you are trying to tear at the screen going, fuck it, take me, get out of the way. You want to push that character out of the way because she hasn't done anything wrong. Every other character, you're like, fuck it, I don't give a shit if you die. See you in hell. But it's like, not you. Which again ties so beautifully into the story of the Raven that we wrap up with, who the angels call Lenore. And it's like, I'm not ashamed to say it brought me to tears. I was crying during that scene. May start crying now. Who knows?
Gugino also does a really great job, because she mentions sitting there. She basically says, there are parts of my job I enjoy. This is not one of them. And she gives us almost when she talks about her mother surviving and everything she's going to go through, over 100 skin grafts. Yikes. And sounds like it's breaking her to describe this. She's just like, I need you to understand what your mother is going to do in your name and how she's going to carry on. She's just like, I need you to know this before you go. I need you to know that this is going to happen so you can be in peace.
I need to not be a shit for like just this short monologue. And again, that was what was beautiful about The Kill, was that every other one has been so violent, and this was just boop.
And the fact that she is the Usher legacy in the end. It comes down to her being the Usher legacy. All the bad stuff will be as footnote, but Lenore will ultimately be the legacy that continues forward. Absolutely. Under the Usher name.
Mm-hmm.
Robert, top that. I'm kidding.
It is your turn.
There.
My bad, man. I should have let you go first.
No, you're good.
I had to get all emotional up in this shit, and it's like, God damn it.
Robert doesn't have emotions, so it's fine.
I do. They're just hard to get to.
He does have emotions, because you can't be the bitchy yoga mom if you don't have emotions. I'm backing you up.
Oh, that's true. There's a couple of decent jump scares that I think I'll go ahead and highlight.
It is interesting to talk about jump scares, because Flanagan has made a career out of avoiding jump scares. We joked about this in Midnight Club, because he actually set the record for the most jump scares in one episode. Of course, that was meant as a joke, but it's still, record's a record. This one did have its fair amount of jump scares, but they were effective.
Yeah, the one with, I think it was Tamerlane, the one with Tamerlane's death, because our narrative device here is, again, it's Roderick and Augie talking, and we get these usually at the beginning of each episode, a break in the middle, and then we close again back with their narrative. And the opening one has something eerie, and then the middle one has our big jump scare, and then we go on to find out how so and so died. The one with, so this would be Goldbug. There's a pretty effective jump scare there, because like all the windows blow out behind him, and it's like this giant explosion goes off. I think the only one that kind of got me, though, I mean, that one reacted because there's a big sound, and if you go from something, if you throw a loud noise in there, then hey, you get a reaction out of people. Yay, very difficult. I appreciate good jump scares, but they're also overused and kind of cheap in a lot of respects. There's one earlier, though, that's in the background. It's in the first episode, actually. Augie has arrived. They're talking, and Roderick looks behind him and sees something. We don't see it on screen. And I think he says it's he says who it is. It's his mother.
Talking about my mother. Why should we talk about your mother? Because
she's behind you.
Yeah.
She's standing right behind you.
And then we cut back to looking at Augie, and there's no one right behind him. This is
there is, but it looks like a column.
Well, no.
She's kind of blending into the column.
No, that's the genius of it. We cut behind him, and you're half expecting it to be, right there over his shoulder and something horrific like that, and it's not.
It
looks normal, and then
like this way.
Yeah, it looks normal, and then he says, "No, I don't want to talk about your mother." And he goes, "No, fair enough." And then
he's like, "There's this is a power play, isn't it?"
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
redirect your eyes. I'm not going to turn around, Roderick. That's fine with me.
And then behind him, you see something move that looked like it was just part of the scenery.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, there we are. So I think I'd like to highlight that one, because there's a lot of craft that went into that, kind of sculpting that moment and that particular scare.
Well, and also they do that throughout. And the good thing about starting with that one with his mom is that then you're so drawn into the great performances of Lumley, but every time he's talking, you're now on edge because you're looking over his shoulder.
You start
Yeah,
paying
you're-
attention to the background.
And that's a key in a lot of horror movies, because a lot of horror directors want to be up in your face with the scares and stuff.
Mhm.
Subtleties in the background is what's more creepy. Main thing I'll point to is The Strangers, when Liv Tyler's in the kitchen and you just see I think it's Dollface, come out in the background and just stand there for a minute and then just slowly disappear. And it's like,
Yeah, 2 other examples in other stuff if anyone out there happens to be interested. I think the big one I would point to in that same vein is Hush, which is about
Hush is very good.
it's about a deaf woman living in a somewhat secluded house, and a burglar comes up and is menacing her. And again, because she's deaf, there's a lot of stuff that happens in the background that she obviously can't hear. We get a few scenes that are from her perspective, so there's no sound. It's so throw a shout out to Hush. If you want another example about why this technique generally works, I mean, the original Halloween is up there for like the first half of that movie, with Michael Myers just in the background out of focus, and you're just kind of looking for him, and he's always there. And then anytime you try to get closer, he's gone, and it creates a wonderful atmosphere.
I think the moment for me that actually scared me, it was in the last episode. You have the scene of Roderick talking to his family in the boardroom and talking to all their ghosts, including Lenore. And then they disappear and Verna comes in. And she's just like, I'm tired. It's like, spare me all of your excuses and everything. And she starts talking to him about his legacy, what his bloodline really is. And it's storming. It's raining cats and dogs out there. And I actually remember watching, and you see a body fall past the window, and I actually said, whoa, who just committed suicide? And
damn it, Bill, we're having a moment here.
And then another one, and then another one. And they turn around and look out the window, and it's literally raining bodies.
It's raining men. Hallelujah.
I knew one of you was going to start singing that. I freaking knew it.
It's funny. I said hallelujah right before you started singing because I was like, I don't want to interrupt the moment. And then you just took it, and I was like, all right, cool. We're already there. Way to ruin the moment.
Hey, I'll ruin every moment. And the fact that the what she's saying as the bodies are falling is like, you wanted to take the world's pain away. These are the people that became addicted to a drug that you said that wasn't addicted. These are the people's lives you ruined. And it's just like literally the bodies are piling up. And it's
like, this is your legacy. This is what you're leaving behind, not your bloodline. This. And the image of it, just the bodies falling in the rain, the way they look as the lightning is flashing, and you could barely see some of the bodies against the rain. And it really scared me. It was like, this is a moment that, had I seen it as a child, would have been giving me nightmares for a week straight.
Yeah. I think we all gave some really good examples, though, and a lot of good viewpoints from what we see as, and it gives a good insight to how we all view horror movies is from the perspective we do. That's why we're such a good measuring stick here on the Rad Legion Broadcasting Network of the horror genre, because we all have that little piece that we take away, but we have the collective appreciation.
Very good analysis there, Jason.
Sometimes I'm smart. Who thought it?
Sometimes. when you're not almost accidentally dying.
We don't speak of that. That's been almost 3 years.
Add that to the handbook of things we don't talk about. Don't bring up Deadpool to Robert. Don't bring up
Jason almost dying on a podcast.
Right.
3 times.
Yeah.
Robert, did you realize that Mark somewhere is going, damn it, Dorian?
He's fine.
He's probably not even listening. He kind of leaves us unattended for the most
I
part.
think he's taking the kids tonight to go see Five Nights at Freddy's.
I
Yeah.
believe so.
Speaking of which, I guess I'll do a quick little early plug. This time next week, we will be discussing the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. And originally, Mark was going to join us, but he's decided since it's going to be the four of us, he's actually stepping out. So I will be helming that review next week, and it'll be the four of us again.
Yay!
And if anything happens to any of us, Mark will step in, which is usually my gig, but
Yeah, no. So, like I said, slight early plug there. Okay, is there anything else that we wanted to talk about? Were there, like I said, we're not going to talk about all of the countless Easter eggs. Oh my god. Okay, I will go ahead and say this. I don't want to talk about all of the Easter eggs because again, we're never going to get out of here if we do that. Okay, we're going to all end up with our own little Red Death. But was there an Easter egg, one or two, that really got you that you maybe didn't see coming, or when it happened, you just couldn't help but laugh? Just one of those like, I get your little Captain America. I understood that reference.
Had to be Dupont for me. Like again, when they brought that name up, I was like, nice. You guys went there.
Mine was seeing the bust of Pallas Athena on the mantle when they were signing the NDAs.
Right.
That freaking killed. And then again, of course, at the end, the Raven was like, perched above a pallet, bust of Pallas. It's like just one of those moments that you knew was going to happen, and I loved it.
I want to say, a lot of the character names, just a wink and a nod. It kind of got a little chuckle out of me, especially when you found out the name of the granddaughter. You're like, okay, how's it? I see what we're doing here. How's this going to play out?
I want Robert to go first, but there was a Easter egg that I wanted to bring up to you, Alexis, to see what you thought. But
no, go ahead.
Okay.
When Mark Hamill, he's walking out of the mansion at one point, and we've already heard his name as Pym several times over and over and over, and he turns to one of the assistants and goes, by the way, I'm having dinner with Richard Parker tonight. Tell him I might be a little late. Did that get anyone else? Because I was like, wait. And I literally, because again, I've had it next to me since I've been reading the whole thing or watching the whole thing, just like going back and checking stuff. I was like, is there a Richard Parker in Poe? And did I miss? I'm like, no, there's too many Marvel. Like again, the Iron Man helmet behind Napoleon. I can get Chris Hemsworth to send me another hammer.
The minute I saw the hammer on there, I was just like, did he get it? And then they actually said, I can get Hemsworth to send me another hammer. And that actually was pretty freaking hilarious. Oh, actually, that brings a question, and I'm hoping you guys can answer this for me. So we know that the cat that he got from Verna was all in his mind, but we see in the picture he took with his phone, she was holding a real animal. Now, I was led to the belief that he took home that real animal, and that's where he got his scratches from. The animal didn't kill all the smaller animals, that he found, but those scratches he got were still real. What was that she was holding in the picture? Was that a rat?
Looked like a guinea pig, to be honest.
I could not tell.
That looked more. It's not a possum, but that's the vibe I got.
Oh, yeah, you know what? Sorry, not guinea pig, possum.
It's a marsupial.
It's too big to be a traditional rat. It's not a dog.
Sewer rat from New York.
Yeah. Again, I've
seen the sewer rats come out out of the underground in London. They're pretty fucking big.
Yeah, it just didn't have a rat vibe. There was something about the face and the head that was not rat. That didn't read rat to me.
I thought it almost looked like a ferret.
Yeah,
no,
I can see. It wasn't a ferret, but I can see where you might get that. So yeah, definitely some weird like quasi vermin creature.
Mm-hmm. Because there was something that he brought home thinking it was Pluto 2.0, and it was scratching him and attacking him all the time.
Well, and
because we know that. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go first.
I was just saying, because we know that Pluto. Okay, so he hallucinates the corpse of Pluto from in the earlier on, after waking up from that, drug fueled whatever the hell he went on, that bender. He hallucinates that because we know Pluto is alive because he shows up at the end. He got out and he's just like, okay, I had my little adventure. I'm back. Hi, Daddy number 2. I've had dogs who have done that, who have they've gotten out of the backyard, and you're scared they're going to run away, but they literally just walk around the neighborhood. Then they come back and sit on the front step like, I had my fun. I want to come in now.
Feed me.
Yeah, pretty much. So yes, I like I said, I was trying to figure out what that was that he hallucinated. That was another black cat that he brought home.
I'm trying to find
the kind of thing you call animal control to get out of your house. Like,
fair enough.
And also something get in the walls, and cats can get in the walls, but more than likely they're not going to. So,
well, I don't think it actually was in the walls. I think he was hallucinating, or it. That was actually something I thought was interesting. Is that for the most part, a lot of what the heirs see, you can't tell if it's a hallucination or if it's Verna, death, the devil, whatever you want, the raven, whatever you want to call her, kind of tricking their mind. So their father is hallucinating from a disease. It's like, maybe they have something similar. Maybe they're hallucinating a lot of this.
Yeah.
What do we think Verna is, by the way? What was
Crossroad Demon is what
I was thinking of Crossroads Demon.
My hunch,
too.
Yeah, some kind of devil in that respect, because making deals that rely on with pretty sadistic twists. That kind of tracks there, and especially again, this is a little bit of like quasi throwaway lines of dialogue, but because the Pym character is taken from the Poe story that deals with the Hollow Earth theory that was kind of popular, especially among science fiction writers at the time,
and has now come back thanks to the Monarchs series with the kaiju.
Indeed. But the line that she says, like, when you guys went past, I had to come topside and see you. Like, it's something that exists on that level. And that usually, again, my hunch there just kind of becomes like, this is, some variation of death or, again, some kind of devil in that respect.
It's saying a muskrat.
That would track.
Verna's a muskrat. I can see that.
And I'm looking at the photo now. The what's creepier about the whole thing is
her eyes.
Well, no, not only that, the fact that she's wearing the Gucci collar, and the fact that they're in an abandoned building.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's creepier. But yeah, it's saying everything that I'm seeing is like a muskrat.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. The muskrat would have scratched him like that.
Every time someone goes to see Verna, it's an abandoned building.
Mm-hmm.
So that just kind of tracks with,
if they were closer to water, I'd say it was a nutria, but.
Well, we can't help it. Verna's homeless, okay? She made poor life choices, and she's on the streets. But what's really cool is, like, I didn't notice that she had the Gucci collar on.
Yeah.
I didn't notice that either. That's
quite
the observation.
I had to stop it and go back. I was like, did you? That thing's wearing the collar. Oh, no.
I didn't notice it when they were at the theoretical animal shelter, but by the time she shows up at the house to kind of to help collect the cat or whatever, allegedly, then it was obvious. Like, then I saw him, like, oh boy, okay.
And what did you guys think about the ending? How the quote unquote gifts placement?
It's
the placement. The Verna's placing of the gifts on the graves. On the graves.
Those are just what killed them.
I like the symbolism.
It's basically the devices that met their demise.
There was only one thing about the ending that I'm a little upset we didn't get. And that is that when the story, The Fall of the House of Usher, before the house collapse, it literally splits into a fissure. The narrator discusses how there's like a crack in the ground that's going up, and you can see it kind of in the in the in the stairs and going up the middle and the roof. And as he escapes, as Madeline and Roderick meet their fates, the fissure just splits the house in two before it completely collapses. I was so hoping we were going to see, I mean, we knew the house was going to fall apart and collapse, but I was hoping to see just for a split second the house split in two.
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons they didn't do that was because, again, one of the things we talked about earlier of the, the mom being behind them, and then for the rest of the time we're now watching for who's coming next. I think if the fissure had started to happen, it would have taken some of the realism away, because Dupont would have been like, fuck this, it's breaking in half, I'm out, deuces, I don't give a shit, go to hell, because again, him being a pretty realistic characterization, not like an obsessive who's like, I must know, because again, obviously he gets up to leave, near the end, he's like, screw it, I don't need your confession, I don't care. So maybe that's why they didn't do it. But again, bouncing off of that, I did love the fact that, again, he just tosses the recorder with all of this at the gravesite. Like, we don't need your excuses. We don't,
Yeah, it's basically saying, it would bring more notoriety to the name than just him dying obscure.
Yeah. You're going to die, people are going to forget you, and we're all going to move on and hopefully have better lives with you out of it.
But as
Pretty
we've
much.
seen with serial killers, the fascination of when the story gets the media, especially how media is today, things get romanticized. With his story dying on that tape recorder, I feel that was basically showing, look, I finally won. Nobody's going to care about your death anymore.
I do like his little speech. I'm going to go home to my husband and my kids. I'm the richest man in the world. Do you love that little bit of dialogue that he says? That's a great line.
And again,
I've never
it's the
seen
hero
somebody
kind of
sad.
winning.
I've never seen somebody sad on a jet ski. That's all I'll say.
All right. Was there anything else that anyone wanted to discuss? Any points that I may have missed? Any other elements they want to bring up before we start moving into plugs and close things out?
Sure, if you don't mind, a couple of something about the overall show.
Go ahead.
So let me preface what I'm about to say with, in general, I liked the show. There were some good kills, there's some good scares, some really good performances. But I'm not me if I don't see the flaws or the things that I would like to change or stuff in that vein. And this series in particular, I think because the good stuff is so good, it kind of highlighted some of my issues with it, especially down the stretch. I don't know that this had enough story for 8 episodes. It lost a lot of steam for me in the last 2. And some of that's layout. Again, you're killing characters every episode, so I understand that, but there's some structural issues and some structural pacing that lost some of the momentum again the further we got into this. Some of Flanagan's eccentricities or excesses in the last couple of episodes really came more into the fore, and it was almost disappointing. One of the things that I've mentioned about Flanagan, this was very true in Midnight Mass. That show in particular, he doesn't really write dialogue so much as characters monologuing at each other. And it's not that that's the worst trick in the world on occasion. Sometimes it works very well for different scenes and for different character interactions. Thumbs up.
Like the Lemons monologue.
Again, there are some good monologues here. But if you look at like the first 6 episodes, you have them, but they're interspersed with genuine dialogue. And the last 2 episodes, we get less of characters dialoguing and more I'm going to talk for a while, and then you talk for a while. And in theory, these two things are connected, but not always. And it just came, again, he was able to restrain that impetus for that impulse for the first 6 episodes so well that when the dam kind of broke in the last 2, it was very, very noticeable. So there's that. I think my other problem with the last 2 episodes, this gets very
Talkie.
like no, not talky. It's a tonal thing. It's very like wish fulfillment. It's very, boy, wouldn't it be nice if the opioid epidemic could be traced back to one company and one guy and one drug, and like this is a profoundly complicated issue. And I'm not saying there weren't bad actors. There were. But no, boy, if only so we can trace it back to one, and then our, quasi protagonist at the end can say, yeah, you may have given us the opioid epidemic, but we're starting to heal as the fentanyl crisis grows more and more real here in the real world.
Yeah, wouldn't it be great if we could just have all of the Sacklers thrown in jail and then everyone would be peachy keen, fine and dandy?
And yeah, that's I was going to bring this up because I was like, you know what, this might just derail the whole thing. But since Robert, since Mom started it, the first 3 episodes, to be honest, I actually did pause it after the 3rd episode because I broke it into little spots that I was watching, and I was like, I swear to God, if this becomes Fall of the House of Trump, I am going to punch somebody.
Yeah, and
they had to. Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't believe they threw in that line in the last episode. I really can't.
Which was really, look, you had her show up next to Trump, like in the photo array that Pim puts together of Verna through the ages. You see her
next
with
to
Trump.
all the mega conglomerate multimillionaires. Yeah.
Right. And here's my issue with it. And I'm going to be very quick about this because, again, I know we don't want to drag this out to be like 2 fucking hours.
Yeah.
The issue I had with it is that the greatest horror movies and horror stories, even horror TV shows, are timeless. We were talking about Exorcist Believer, obviously you and I, Robert.
Yeah.
If you look at The Exorcist and you break it down to its bare elements, it's kids having problems. Oh, shit. We've done psychiatric testing. Fuck, that's not working. We've called an exorcist. It's timeless. It's the idea of our child innocence is being assaulted. Nightmare on Elm Street, same general idea. People are dying for absolutely no reason. It doesn't matter the time period it's in. It can still remain timeless in so much that the story itself is timeless.
Yeah.
My problem as a writer, and again, I'm saying this as if I was sitting across from Mike Flanagan. I'm one of his friends, maybe knows my older brother, who gives a shit. I'm having a drink with him. I would be saying this as my, critique. If again, he doesn't care, but he's far more popular. But is the minute you attach it to something that is currently happening, it becomes dated. If this story had been told in the same way that they told it with what we saw 5-10 years from now, it would have remained more timeless than it is right now. But unfortunately, it is tied so much, and even some of the characterizations, it maybe it's just the news that, affecting my brain, but it seems like even Freddie seemed like Trump's oldest, or maybe not Trump's oldest, the second oldest. I don't know.
Eric,
yeah, the one that seems just a little off all the time, or you're like,
not the one that looks like that comes across like Patrick Bateman in real life.
Yeah, no, yeah, sorry. The other one. But yeah. So that was one of my issues with it. I do have another one, but Robert, please continue. I don't want to monopolize your time.
No, that's one of the things I was very concerned about too. Like, are they going to make this super? Again, pardon the phrase, but super Trumpy, and I think they avoided that again for most of it. They skirted it. Like, okay, you could draw parallels to Trump, but it's not the only parallel you can draw. So, and which is what makes a good story. Like, are there things now going on that you could draw parallels to? Yes. How about 20 years ago? Yes. 30 years ago? Yes. That's what you want. And again, the line from Carla at the end that they had her say, like, that was the bridge too far, I think. Again, her being her in the past being around Trump, given Trump's rise to prominence, that tracks. This is a bunch of historic figures who rose to prominence in the financial sector and whatnot. Would have loved her by a couple of different political figures. I just mean like the demonstrably screwed up ones, maybe even go international with it. Like, hey, here she is with Saddam Hussein, and here she is with
Vlad the Impaler.
Yeah, stuff like I found, it's an 18th century oil painting, but this sure looks like her next to Vlad, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's something like that. So
Well, again, sorry, the connection thing also is like, we did this back in, I believe, 2016 when American Horror Story did change their whole storyline that they were going to do, and it became American Horror Story Cult, which has much like this, has really great moments, but it was like, did you have to do it when this was happening at the time?
Hit a little too close to reality for us to.
Which again is kind of the thing. It's like, to me, horror movies should be, if we're going to deal with something realistic like a serial killer, fine, let's put it in realism. But with all, again, if you want a horror story, folks, you don't even have to watch the show. I suggest you do, because it's really, really awesome. But all you have to do is turn on the news.
Yeah.
If you want a cool horror movie, let's set it, in a universe that's just a couple off from ours. We
want horror to be relatable, but not parallel to ours.
Not banging on our front door while we're watching it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm off. My soapbox is going away. My bad.
That's a very relevant point. It's one that I've raised on occasion, and it's still true. Like, there's ways. It's one thing for something to be relatable to anything that's happening right now. It's another thing for it to be reflective of it, and the reflection.
That was the better word. Yeah.
When you deal with the quasi-reflective nature of it, you prevent other readings. You prevent other parallels from being drawn. Yeah, and that's a problem. That's a hallmark of, again, somewhat weaker writing, and Lord knows I've been guilty of it back when I used to do more creative writing. In the same kind of wish fulfillment area that this one happens to live in, especially down the stretch, there's a couple of there's one the line from Verna that really annoyed me, and it wasn't the Trump line, believe it or not. It was, don't get me wrong, that's a stupid line, and I really wish it wasn't there.
Yeah,
the line,
you guys, it's like, you guys know me. I'm incredibly anti-Trump, and when you said that, I actually shouted, "Oh, come on!"
The line she says that, again, kind of really annoyed me was when she says, "You humans, you're weird, you're fascinating, because you could fix all your problems if you stopped making movies and television for a year or so, with all the money that goes into that could be spent into things that need fixing." And I wanted to put my head through a wall.
I did as well, because she left out one thing.
All right.
If she had continued that line of stop making movies and TV for a year, stop televising sports or paying sports stars so much. If she had continued that, I would have felt that she would have capped everything off. It still wouldn't have been a great line. I'm with you on that. But if she had gone the full distance and been like, sports too, then I would have been on board.
Yeah, I can see that.
I would say that line started off well, because I actually do like what she says. It's like, you guys have all the money to cure all these problems and fix all these issues, but we talked about that, spending all that money to go on that trip that Pim went on. She's like, think about she's like, you could have done so much, but nope, you guys just had to throw all that money. That line actually worked. But then when she continues, like, if you stop making movies, I was like, you could have just stopped.
I think the other,
after that first line.
The other problem I have with that, and this goes to, again, kind of reading the author, the director in this case, a little bit. And again, if you read enough of or you watch enough of anybody's work, you start to pick up on some guys make it very easy to figure out their stances on things. They're not subtle about it. Flanagan's not the most subtle guy, but relative to others, he is. Heaven knows we've seen enough that's just neon sign behind the head of various characters. But one of the big tells is the more they want the more one of their characters is either the one you're rooting for or one that represents serious external power. In the case of Verna, it's serious external power. What they say is meant to be more reflective of the truth. And that's kind of what grates me about this is Verna is up until that point presented as this, I won't say dispassionate observer, because there's clearly emotion in some of what she does, but it's either very personal that leads to emotion or super removed where there's no emotion. Hitting this weird middle ground where I'm going to be super judgmental about all of you and in the wrong way.
Absolutely.
And again, this is one of the things that kills me. If one of the characters says one of the human characters expresses that same sentiment, it's obviously meant to be a little bit false and a little bit colored. And never mind the fact that money doesn't actually solve all that many problems. Humanity has thrown piles and piles and piles of money at problems we still have. If money alone were the solution, we'd have been out of the weeds on some of this stuff a long time ago. There's a lot more that goes into it. You'd think the supernatural being who can perceive different timelines and the past, present, and future all at the same time would be aware of the complications, that it's not just, hey, here's X billion dollars and we can solve homelessness. Well, no,
you can't, because
that's not how that works.
There's several tiers below that, and without going, obviously, we don't want to turn this into a welcome to C-SPAN.
We're not going into that. We've already been talking for an hour and a half.
If any other character had brought it up, I'd have let it go. I mean that, because it doesn't matter if any of the other ones say it. Like Madeline has this bit, this little monologue at the end about people are the reason we are the way we are. And there's there's truth to her sentiment about when you are in charge of the mob, or you're in one of those positions, you can't just impose your will on them. You have to do kind of what stand-up comics do. You have to read the room, read the audience. And you throw some stuff out, what do they react to? Okay, now we generate a feedback loop. So when you're in charge,
she talks about how the world begged them to do this, and they're just pissed off that they got what they wanted. Which again, as a villain speech, which again, I'm sorry, in my opinion, Madeline's the villain of the piece.
Yeah, majority of the characters are unlikable, but Madeline is downright scary.
Again, I would have been very interested to see a version of this that is a little bit more like the book, where Roderick is just kind of being led around by the nose by Madeline. Madeline's obviously our villain. We could have given Mary McDonnell a lot more to play with. I mean, again, everyone did well. And again, for the audience watching, please go watch the show. It is fantastic. Flanagan does not disappoint this time. I mean, it's not, but it's also not, this is horrible. But at the same time, if it had been a curse more that some of the characters they're still rich kids, but they're not all shitty, might have worked better, in my opinion.
Real quick before you guys continue, Jason, you said you need to get out of here pretty soon.
Yeah, I need to go ahead and bounce. I got to be up at 4. I got to be up at 4 a.m. and I still got to pack everything up to be ready to leave in the morning. So it's been fun. Wish I could stay longer, but I've got about a 14.5-hour day and then a 2.5-hour drive home tomorrow. So
oh geez,
you win. All right, thanks for coming in, Jason. We'll see you next week for Five Nights at Freddy's.
All right, see you guys.
Be safe, boss.
Night,
man. I think you're right.
Alexis, you're the boss, so keep us in a focused thing here, because I'm pretty sure Robert and I can rock'em sock'em robots this thing till 8 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah,
which is not a bad thing. It's just
like I said, we're not going to turn this into C-SPAN. We're not going to.
Yeah. Well, again,
we've been here long enough. I do not want to start critiquing Mike Flanagan's political leanings. It's obvious the man is fairly liberal.
Yeah, and again, Madeline's the last thing on the psychology, then I'm going to get back to the other point that you raised because I think it's true and interesting. Again, when you're in charge of the mob, like the mob does draw out your own inner darkness in a way that is not often appreciated when in these general conversations. You see, you know, let's take Stalin just for the sake of example. Wild authoritarian, you know, murdered hundreds of millions of people. But when you're in charge of that many people, of that big of a, it's not just force of might that makes it work. It's too big. You can't bully millions and millions of people consistently. It doesn't work. It breeds too much resentment. It breeds too much whatever. It leads to revolution. So what Stalin would do, and what, again, any tyrant, no matter how long they reign, there is something about the way they present themselves and the stuff they talk about that is calling to what unifies or what, again, something will unify their people. And frequently it's negative because if it was positive, they wouldn't be tyrants, now would they? And because the tyrant is constantly trying to dance with the darkest part of the mob, that mob is basically inciting and incentivizing the tyrant to give into their darkest impulses. And again, you get this horrible negative feedback loop. Absolutely. That just exacerbates itself over time. But I think you raised an interesting point there, that if there's something missing from this show, it's, believe it or not, it's tragedy. The only tragic figure is Lenore. Yeah. And to an extent, her mother.
I would argue also Annabelle.
Yeah,
we don't get enough time with her though, and like even her death that we see. I mean, we don't even see it. We just see when she walks away. There's that huge, you know.
Oh, she blew her brains out. Yeah, there's no question of it. She committed suicide.
we don't get to spend enough time with her to have that moment. Like, again, we spend time with her, but we need to spend time with her seeing Roderick Morris the monster, because what they present to us is this character going, "Fuck, if I get fired, our kids are screwed. We can't afford the medicine." Shit, it's like it's almost like the story was trying to give us this character where it's like, well, you know, I mean, he became horrible, but his first decision wasn't that horrible, which again works because, again, I'm sorry, I said again like 5 times there in a row. Is the road to hell is paved with good intentions. But at the same time, it's like I would have wanted to see her more, you know, like, let's see what they're talking about. Don't tell us about it. Show us, you know, the kids being like, hey, he's rich. Fuck it.
Yeah. But again, to that point, if we only have like 1.5, we'll call it 1.5 tragic characters, I kind of don't mind that we spend so little time with Annabelle in the sense that even the poem that this draws on is very much idealizing a memory. So there's a lot of that going on with Roderick's reminiscent of her, and I'm okay with that artistically. But it does leave us with a whopping 1.5 characters that are tragic figures in this story.
Admittedly, Annabelle, she is a tragic figure, but she serves more as a reversal from Madeline. You have that scene where Annabelle is crying because her husband just committed frickin' perjury, and she was getting wrapped up in we need to do what's right. And you have a very scary speech from Madeline where she essentially says, "Oh God, you're actually like legit doing this. I thought you were just playing your part." Wow. Madeline is so...
There's a brief moment that very, very quickly, so I just want to bring this up, is that there's a moment that actor who plays young Madeline, there's a moment of sadness that I really like, because they almost captured that Poe-esque tragedy of a twisted figure. I thought you only existed in the movies. And then she's right back to her twisted side. But it's like that brief moment, I'm like, you're human, and it's gone.
Exactly. Like I said, Annabelle is a tragic figure, but she serves more to show Madeline as the inhuman, cold-hearted monster that she is.
Yeah, she contrasts Madeline. She also presents the sad what might have been for Roderick if he'd listened to, the angel on his shoulder instead of the devil.
Yeah, it's like he would have been a poet. A broke poet, but are there any other kind?
Is there any other kind?
Yeah.
I
As a
liked that. That was, and again, even with you, Alexis. Sorry, I'm pointing the wrong way. There you go. That's why I'm not in front of the camera normally. When he's talking to or she's Gugino's talking to Freddie. Well, he's like, you would have been a dentist. So much the irony.
And well, not just you would have been a dentist, and a good one.
A pretty good one.
Pretty good one, yeah.
And that's why what you did felt so much wronger than
if you just hadn't picked up those
pliers.
You could have had a heart attack on your way here in the car, and it would have been.
And I guess that's why. And I don't think we've pushed this enough. Gugino is, since she is supposed to be technically in a way our antagonist or our sense of justice, depending on how you want to look at it. She does fantastic. And again, for those of you watching, please go watch the show. If you end up hating it, we do apologize, but at the same time, Gugino does fantastic. Well, I mean, everybody does fantastic work.
Yeah, Gugino is playing multiple characters. She has multiple accents, multiple portrayals, and you believe each one of them. There's never at any point that she comes off and it's just like, oh, look, it's Verna doing a bit. I think about the scene in The Telltale Heart where she suddenly has a bit of a country accent and she's playing a woman with a health condition, a heart problem, and she is just so scared of what's happening to her, and she's getting so wrapped up in what Victorine is promising her. And you have an amazing bit where they're talking in her office and she suddenly switches back to Verna, the character, and it's like two totally different actresses.
Well, yeah, because she's got kind of like the wide, watery eyes, and I'm worried about being the first, and it still messes with you. That noise, doesn't it? And it's just like that, and it's like,
Dude, actors who can turn on a dime like that are always fascinating.
And again, it's fantastic overall. I know, Alexis, you've been wanting to wrap this up because we're at 1 hour 56 minutes.
Yeah, I knew the show is going to go long because when we talk about horror, Robert, you can back me up on this. When we talk good horror, it goes on forever because we tend to not shut up.
Good horror engenders good conversation.
I got nothing better to do tonight, so I mean, you guys, we can make this a 4-hour show. Mark will kill us all tomorrow, but to die will be a great adventure.
Mark will kill us nothing. I'll kill you, Dorian, and I actually know where you live.
Shit.
Yeah, sorry, I got Halloween decorations to make.
No, you're good. I think that's the last bit that I had. There was just, I feel it doesn't quite stick the landing the way I wanted it to, and I think we could have done with some more tragically sympathetic characters along the way. And that's just that's just kind of a personal thing, but part of what makes, again, there's a deep element of tragedy to Poe's work, and limiting the truly tragic characters that we follow in this to just like 2 is it's a choice that I understand somewhat given Flanagan's take on this, but it's one I think I would have preferred gone a different direction.
Did we, as tragic characters, and I'm sorry, and I'm not trying to drag this out, I just realized that we hadn't really talked about her much. Did we bring up Juno as kind of more of a tragic character?
This is my other big complaint, believe it or not, about this show.
Sorry.
No. You're
We're never
good.
getting out of here.
I'll be
quick.
right, hang on.
We're all gonna die here.
I'll be brief. I'll be very brief. That's a character that could have been removed from this show and nothing would have been lost.
True, but I did like her work in it because like she does grow from being the like, oh my god, she's young enough to be your grandchild. You're gross. It's like, grandpa and grandma. No. Never say that again. I will hit you.
And all the times the airs, it's like, I'm sorry, why is it talking? Why is it in the room?
I would argue she's a tragic figure because again, even in Goldbug, when Tamerlane starts going nuts, it's like, why the fuck are you here? And she's looking over her shoulder before Juno's like, I'm here to support you.
Yeah, admittedly, I think they could have they really should have built her up a little bit more. I get the idea.
If she's gonna be there, she has to do something other than be part of a quasi-happy ending, which felt more like a filling character where Flanagan kind of and writing team kind of went, okay, this is in theory a dour series, but we're gonna have a kind of happy ending with one of the characters getting the last zinger, and we'll tell the story of Lenore's mom and what happens to her at the end. And what do we do about the billion-dollar pharmaceutical company? Well, how about we do what we should do with all mega corporations, and we'll break it up and we'll throw the money at charity, which I'm sure won't be immediately pocketed by all the people running said nonprofit organizations. Looking squarely at you, Susan G. Komen Foundation. You are one of the worst in this respect, and this is all empirically proven. And so we need somebody who's, not the worst person in the world to inherit the company, and so be married to somebody. And it just felt kind of slapdash in that respect to serve the ending goal. And that's just not a writing bit that I personally enjoy. And so I would have rather she not be there. To be, again, either she has to serve a purpose other than a coda, or get rid of her entirely.
She felt tacked on, and there should have been more to do with her. And either make her as horrible as everyone else in a like twist, ending, or
Like, so she has potential for actually a really good story. I like this idea that she is literally trapped by her drug use, and her husband is saying, nope, you need to stay on it, because to him, having a wife who's a successful drug story is more important than her getting off of it.
That line, I'm not a monster, I'm Victor Frankenstein. You're the monster. And again,
someone clearly hasn't read the book.
You're the purest distillation of what I've accomplished. You process my
and
drug.
I said it's alive. And again, sorry, Bruce Greenwood again. Just
how could I not marry you?
Knocking it out of the fucking park. Like, there are moments. One of the things that, again, this will be my last point, and I will shut up, is I think Bruce Greenwood is one of the best in here, probably right behind Gugino. I think it's funny that his ghost in one of Mike Flanagan's earliest things, Gerald's Game, is haunting Carla Gugino, and now Carla Gugino is haunting him. It's like, revenge, motherfucker. But
especially since you just left me lying there on the ground to get eaten by that dog.
I had a heart attack. No. I love how we're debating this like we were actually there. Why did I handcuff Robert to a bed? Tune in next time. But no, anyways, the acting he brings and what he talks about is like, there's times where you start to feel bad for him, and then he'll snap back with something that happened in the past, and then he'll I would hope that I haven't seen the reviews this has gotten yet, but I hope he gets at least an Emmy nomination.
Yeah, his work is really tremendous.
Well, let's see here. Rotten Tomatoes, 89% of 100 critics' reviews are positive, with an average rating of 7.9 out of 10. The website's consensus reads, presenting vintage Poe stories filtered through Mike Flanagan's deliciously dark lens, The Fall of the House of Usher will get a rise out of horror fans. Metacritic gives it an 73 out of 100 based on 32 critics, indicating generally favorable reviews. Its cast, production values, directing, and editing were singled out, with the performances of Carla Gugino, Bruce Greenwood, and Mark Hamill being singled out by a number of critics.
That all tracks.
I'm sorry. Greenwood can get the nod for Best Actor. Please, Emmy nomination committee, I know you're probably not watching this, but on the off chance that one of your daughter's cousins is, please give Mark Hamill an Emmy nomination for Best Supporting Actor, because the man fucking deserves it. And that is my last bit.
Yeah, absolutely. He deserves consideration for that. Again, wonderfully understated, wonderfully menacing. Yeah, I wish this had been more even from top to bottom as a show, because when it's good, it's really good. I mean, we haven't even talked. None of us mentioned maybe the most harrowing kill, for want of a better expression. But poor guy who looks like Paul Rudd is not Paul Rudd, but looks like him. Drunk and drugged, getting walled into that.
The cask of Amontillado.
Yeah.
Right.
He found the frickin' bird.
Told you I would.
Yeah.
Like I said, cask of Amontillado is my favorite, and I knew there had to be something.
The fact that they opened this whole show with
all it is Another
No,
brick in the
I am
wall.
never going to hear that song the same way again.
For the
Okay, I'm
record,
sorry. I did say this was my last bit, but honestly, every time I've heard that song was after I read Poe's stuff. I always thought that's what that song was about. Because I always heard that bit, and then someone else would talk because it was like on the radio. So I was like, dude, it's a song about Edgar Allan Poe's story. Nice. No, Dorian, it's not, but good for you.
It's
Pink
not,
Floyd
but
would
now
be-
I'm never going to disassociate it. But yes,
Pink
the
Floyd would
scene
be
of them,
infinitely cooler if they referenced Poe. Because
the
I
scene
don't
of
care
them,
for Pink Floyd.
it's like, yeah, I didn't get to talk about my adaptation of my favorite, but yeah, the scene of them burying Griswold. Oh, fun fact: Griswold, Longfellow, those are the names of two of Poe's harshest critics. So nice touch there. And watching Griswold go through all of the stages of grief, realizing that he is stuck in there, to her carving in the words, "You are so small." So that is literally the last thing he will see before that candle burns out.
Well, there's an interesting, and this is deliberately done by the team. I think there's some interesting parallels with Roderick's management style being lifted pretty much wholesale from Griswold, but you don't see it until you only see it after the fact. Like you'll see him do something, then we jump back to the past and we see where he got it, and it
To even
Well, and
directly
Longfellow, it's
quoting
just-
Griswold.
yeah, and then the same thing is true there with Madeline. The "you're so small" line comes because that's what Annabelle said to her before, like the last time they talked, and it clearly bothered her. Like, oh, this is the worst thing that's ever been said to me. I imagine it'll be the worst thing that'll ever be said to you. So yeah, there's that. It's the same thing in the music sense, just very briefly. As a general rule, Flanagan has what I would call as the most generically eclectic. Like if you were to look up, like, hey, what's an eclectic music usage in film, and you'd probably get Flanagan stuff because it's mainstream enough to have been heard, but not mainstream enough to be instantly recognizable. So it kind of, again, there's exceptions to that. Obviously, everyone knows The Wall. But the fact that their deal with the devil, while the twins are making that deal with Verna, in the background is Gordon Lightfoot, and I just heard the name of the song, but it went out of my head. I think is it the Edmund Fitzgerald, the one about the very, very enormous ship that sank in Lake Superior.
Lake, it is said, never gives
Yeah.
up their dead when the storms of November come early.
Yeah.
Yeah, record the Edmund Fitzgerald, yeah.
Yeah, that's the song playing in the background. Like, well, if anyone was going to make a deal with the devil, it would be the people on the sinking ship, wouldn't it? And these two just committed pretty heinous murder.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, Alexis, wrap us up since you're the boss.
Yeah, I think we've talked long enough. All right. So, yes, folks, follow the House of Usher. Currently available on Netflix, 8 episodes, about an hour each. We highly recommend checking out. This is, even though some of us here might not say it's the best that Flanagan has given us, I would say it's definitely among his best.
Yeah, again, Flanagan's he doesn't have an in-between. It's generally either like a triple or a strikeout.
Mhm.
And this is a pretty solid hit.
Well, again, as I'm nowhere near any close to his level yet of directing yet. But again, as someone who works in film, it is great to see someone else in the art form. Again, he's had hit and misses, but he keeps trying to get better each time. And that's the point of being an artist. Try again, fail better.
Yep.
Exactly. All right. So yes, go ahead and check this out. Even if you're not a huge fan of Edgar Allan Poe, we all think you're going to love this.
Okay. Last thing. Do we know what he's doing next? Has he announced
No,
anything?
I actually just pulled up his Wikipedia page. I do not see anything listed after this. Again, he has done so Haunting of Hill House was 2018, Blind Manor was 2020, Midnight Mass was 21, Midnight Club was 22, this was 23. So yeah, nothing listed here for what he's doing next.
Well, fans of Flanagan, let's hope that he's kicking his feet back a little bit and dreaming up his next nightmare.
Be very cautious with this next project. Again, he's up and then down, up and then down, and this was up, coming off of a down. So if the pattern holds,
Either way, chances are pretty good that you will see the unholy trinity, possibly plus one, on this day next year. Because again, this is literally the same day that we reviewed freaking Midnight Mass. It really is serendipity.
He's the one that I
Or
think
not
is
Midnight Mass, Midnight Club.
he's the one that I think is trying to get a Dark Tower adaptation off the ground. And
I say we all just show up again same time next year and just be like, dude, Mike, what the hell? We're here. We have nothing to review. We're gonna make our own movie.
Yes, slacker.
Either that or somebody go
blackjack
get
and hookers.
either that or go get Guillermo del Toro to do a season 2 of the Cabinet of Curiosities.
Yeah, definitely wanting that.
Mm-hmm. Either way,
I'm sorry, the kid in me is still going Hellboy 3. I know it's never gonna happen, but to dream the impossible dream.
I would sell a kidney if it meant we could get his version of Mountains of Madness.
Could you not pause between the D and the N in that? I would sell a kid me. Like, what?
No, Robert would sell a child too, very quickly.
It's like, hey, it's not mine. Fuck it.
Look, I would sell their joints if nothing else. I could sell the kid's knee.
Flanagan, here's your new idea.
All right. So yes, hopefully this next year, the Unholy Trinity plus one will return. We will be talking about whatever Netflix brings out for their next horror miniseries. That is our tradition. In the meantime, like we mentioned before, you're going to find us coming back next week to talk about Five Nights at Freddy's. I have been looking forward to this for ages. Huge fan of the game series, and this is a movie that the fans have been clamoring for this for ages. And I'm seeing a lot of.
Look, I don't know if it's going to be. Look, it missed its window to be just the best, because now it's got to compete with Willy's Wonderland and
the Banana Splits movie, and we will be talking about those next week because Mark and I reviewed both of those.
Dude, I was on the Willy's Wonderland review too.
Oh, that's right, you were. I forgot. I remembered it was just Mark and me for the Banana Splits movie, which I still maintain with the script for that was originally a Five Nights at Freddy's film.
Almost certainly.
And actually, Alexis, I'd like to do this publicly. A good chunk of my group of friends are going tomorrow evening to see it. If you were not busy, you're welcome to join us. If you are busy, I completely understand. Which I guess is probably a really good segue into our pitch things, but
Dorian, please send me time and theater because Andre and I wanted to go see it. I will talk to him, see if what he wants to do. If he still wants to go see it, then he and I may go separately for a date night. If he backs out, I will join you.
It's going to be the same theater we see everything else at, and just for privacy's sake, I'm not going to say that on the actual live stream.
Too late. What? Screenland Armor is a great theater in Kansas City, okay?
We have stalkers. You don't want to... Did you see how the show went?
You have stalkers. I'm not that popular.
No, I was talking about the House of Usher. That they thought it was a stalker at first. And then they found out. I was trying to bring it back.
All right. Well, Mr. Price, why don't you go ahead and tell us where our fans can find you and what you're working on?
Well, as you see it... Damn it. There.
It's mirrored, but not mirrored.
We're at Frankie Pictures on everything. Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, even if you still use that. We cover all the bases. We are currently working on several music videos. So if you are a garage band that is looking for a new promo video or a electronic press kit so you can get some more jobs, please let us know. There is in the Five Nights at Freddy's review, I'm going to be actually pitching a whole bunch of other people, but for right now, obviously just me. We have a film thing that's actually working at the moment that Alexis, you and I need to talk about because I think you'll be interested in it. But yeah, we're constantly working, anything that needs to be taken pictures of, filmed, edited, we're here for you. So, wow, that sounded way more late night sham wow than I wanted it to be, but here we are. But yes, that's us. We're Frankie Pictures, and we're ready to believe you. Had to do it once.
All right, Robert, other than the Unholy Trinity coming back next week, where can we find you?
I cover mixed martial arts and professional wrestling over at 411mania.com. MLW stuff on Thursday, WWE SmackDown on Fridays, and then the UFC when they run Saturdays. There is no UFC event this Saturday. So rather than be able to enjoy my hallowed, potentially my very rare Saturday free of anything, Mark called me and said, "Hey, boxing." So Mark and I will be doing a watch-along alternate commentary thing for Tyson Fury versus Francis Ngannou, live to you from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. So tune in for that here on the relevant W2M network channels. If you're interested in my more serious takes on combat sports, I host the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast. I record that Sunday evening. So Monday morning, I can accompany you to work. You can listen to me talk about fighters, fights, news. This last week was a review of UFC 294 and the clown fiesta that was. Oy. This week will be a preview of the next Fight Night card, and I imagine more time will be devoted to the news that broke this week about losing the main event for UFC 295 because, well, that's big news with some pretty big knock-on effects. So if any of that interests you, tune in for that. And yeah, I'm here on Damn You Hollywood pretty much every time it goes live. So next week, Five Nights at Freddy's, as Alexis mentioned.
And the boss
All right.
herself.
And you also just reviewed earlier this week Killers of the Flower Moon.
Mark and I did. We spent one of the few reviews that took less time to review than the movie did. That's our joke. Mark
The
and
review is shorter than the film.
Yep. Not usually the case. Mark and I can talk a fair bit. But 3.5 hours was a bit of an ask, and we couldn't quite hit that mark.
We can't even hit that mark. All right. So yes, in addition to
challenge accepted.
Let's talk. We'll discuss that next when Scorsese comes out with his next project. Or was this supposed to be his? Is he retiring?
Nope.
I can't remember.
No,
I couldn't remember if this was supposed to be his curtain out.
No, he's apparently he said this I think last year that he finally understands what Akira Kurosawa was talking about when Kurosawa was 80 and going, I finally understand what I can do with film and the wonderful medium that it is. Now I just don't have enough time and energy to really push the boundaries. And now that Scorsese's 80, he finally understands what Kurosawa was talking about, and he's going and going and going until he finally. I think Tarantino's the one who's going to retire after his next one. Scorsese, I don't know what he's doing next, but he plans on last I heard, he's going to continue making movies, and his daughter's going to continue to make him use various forms of social media for all of our amusement and betterment.
Hey, if you love what you do, you die in the chair.
True.
Cowboy dying with his boots on. It's the way we all want to go. All right. So in addition to the Five Nights at Freddy's review that I will be hosting, since Mark has decided to step out of that, also TV Party tonight. Next coming up. So let's see here. We've got Loki, which is currently going through it on Disney Plus. We're going to be discussing that. We have Gen V on Amazon Prime, trying to get a crew together to discuss that. We're also going to be taking a look at the Scott Pilgrim anime that's going to be coming out on Disney Plus. And I just got a confirmation tonight that Jesse Starcher, David Wright, and I will be doing Hell of a Boss Season 2 Part 1, because it turns out that they're going to do another 5 episodes next year, and we just said screw it, let's go ahead and talk about the first half of it. So we're going to be discussing that in November. Looking forward to that. It's like, oh, twist my arm, talk about Vivzy Pop. Oh, how could I ever possibly deal with that? Yeah, Dorian knows I could talk about her work for hours on end and never get sick of it.
Days.
Yeah, pretty much. And now on to the plugs that actually pay the bills. Let me see if I can actually get this. There it is. Yay. So Honeysuckle Rose Creations, where fashion meets fandom at the intersection of geek and chic. And I did want to have this link up because if you are a fan of Edgar Allan Poe, I have actually made this as one of my favorite pieces. It's an Edgar Allan Poe charm bracelet. It's made out of repurposed Scrabble tiles. Each tile, there it goes. features a separate story of Poe's. Had a lot of fun designing this because, as you can actually see, zoom in. There it goes. As you can actually see, not only does it have the iconography of each story, but it also contains text of each story. This is one of my favorite pieces I ever make. I really put a lot of effort into it. You see, we got the Telltale Heart, the Pit and the Pendulum, the Black Cat, the Cask of Amontillado, Red Death, Premature Burial, Fall of the House of Usher, Annabelle Lee, and the Raven there in the front. So if you're a fan of Edgar Allan Poe, go ahead and check that out. It's available on our Etsy, and I think it's available on our Handmade at Amazon shop. I need to go through and double check that. Been having a few troubles with the listings on Amazon. I need to clean that up. In addition, we are officially done with the convention season. We're getting ready to start things for, God help us, our holiday and Black Friday sale. And as always, I will bring this up that starting on, of course, we will be starting a huge sale on Black Friday, but any order that is placed from either of our shops, from Etsy or Handmade at Amazon, starting from Black Friday, going to Christmas Eve, each order that is placed, we will donate $5 to St. Jude's Children's Hospital. Last year, the orders came in. We ended up donating over $400 to the hospital. It's a great charity to give to. So if you're interested, go ahead and check out our shop. We got tons of amazingly unique jewelry, especially a lot of stuff for those fun horror fans. And you know what? I was going to go ahead and read the closing line of the House of Usher, but we've been talking for 2 hours and 20 minutes. I'm freaking tired. I still got jack-o'-lanterns to carve. So I think we're just going to go ahead and call this a night. Ladies and gentlemen, for Mr. Dorian Price, for Mr. Robert Winfree, thank you for tuning in. Be well, behave, be safe.